Hello everyone, I'm Kevin, otherwise known as Forum BX257, your friendly neighborhood vintage G.I. Joe toy reviewer. And today, for the 60th anniversary of the G.I. Joe name, I'm going to be taking a look at the Commemorative Collection 1994 G.I. Joe Action Soldier. In 3 3/4 inch size, of course. But it looks like I'll have to assemble it first. And here we have the Action Soldier in all of his glory. He comes with 3 main accessories, one being his pistol, which is actually molded on the Shockwave pistol from 1988. He comes with a rifle, as well as a large backpack. The backpack has some nice detail on here. A lot of the things which you could have gotten with a 1960s G.I. Joe, like the rolled up bedroll. I'm not really sure what this would have been on this side, but this would have been a folded up entrenching tool or a folding shovel. And we have a map case on the side here. I suppose you could consider the missile launcher part of its accessory set, because you can take out the bunker's pintle, and it has a handle here, and that's good enough for the G.I. Joe figure to hold it on its own. This Action Soldier has some really nice detail on here, harkening back to the old 1960s figure. However, there are some unfortunate things, like his helmet is not removable, nor are his webbing straps, which would have been permanently attached to his backpack, and you can see that the colors match that. You would never have just had like suspenders done in that color just by themselves. You'll also notice that he only has 2 pockets on his shirt here, meaning that he is in fact wearing a shirt and not his combat jacket, which would have had, I believe, 4 pockets. But that's the kind of strange thing, because his fatigue shirt would have had buttons, and you don't see that sculpted in here. Whereas with the jacket, he would have had a zipper with like a little flap over it. So this kind of looks like both combined. He does have a little pop of gold here for his brass belt buckle, which is kind of cool. He also has a little canteen on his side here. But he doesn't have the ammo pouches. Like, he has like one random pouch, which I'm not really sure what that would have been. He does come with this typical G.I. Joe lace-up boots, although I kind of wish they were darker, as I'm not really sure if this is coming out on the video or not, but these are actually they're painted very pale. They should be like a dark brown like the stand is, but they're not. Overall, it's still a really good figure. Our nice little touch is the little trigger finger they gave him, because a lot of the old G.I. Joes, they had these kind of like chopstick hands with the index finger kind of pointing out, mimicking the trigger finger. And of course he does have his scar on his cheek. The Action Soldier comes with a bunker with sandbags on the front and a pintle to hold the rocket launcher. What's very interesting about this is that the original G.I. Joe never came with a bunker. Sandbags, yes. Rocket launcher, which they would have called a bazooka back in the day, yes. But not a bunker. Very interesting. Hasbro did make a bunker for the Defenders line back in 1975, 76, I want to say, which is very interesting. So clearly they could have made one, but they never did. Rather unfortunate, because this is quite a staple for Army men back in the day, and, well, even today. This is a really nice addition to any G.I. Joe set, be it 3 3/4 inch or 12 inch. Now, as you can see, it is made up of 3 parts. You can actually just kind of fold these out and have them out straight if you want, making it quite a bit larger, even though it doesn't have a sort of back to lean on now, but I suppose you could just kind of fake it by putting something back there. And of course, the main attraction to this is the rocket launcher, which is on a pintle, so you can kind of move it around and go up and down, although I'm not really sure why you would point it downwards. You can just remove that, remove the pintle itself. Now you just have the rocket launcher by itself with one rocket. It is actually a, well, it is actually a fairly high-strung little spring in there, and I found that the best way to load this up is to actually pull this thing back so that this thing is on the open position, because normally it's like down like this, but you want to pull it up and then put the rocket as far in as it'll go, and then lock it down. And then when you fire this thing off, it fires with a great amount of force. You've got to admit, he looks great hunkered down in his little bunker. Very iconic, very Army man looking. But before I continue on, I'd just like to take a look at some of his paperwork and the packaging, such as his 1994 product catalog, which does not show any of the Commemorative series of figures. And let's take a look at his packaging. The packaging is actually quite gorgeous with the gold lettering and the overall book style of packaging that this thing came with. It's actually really a shame that these things really didn't catch on when they were released back in 1994. And yeah, that is kind of funny, because this is commemorating the 30th anniversary of the G.I. Joe name, and now this toy itself is 30 years old. But back in the day, back in 1994, these weren't received very well. They really were peg warmers. Rather unfortunate. And as you can see from the back here, we have 4 of the services: Action Soldier, Action Sailor, Action Marine, and Action Pilot. And we actually had a 5th offering, a box set of not only the 4 in somewhat altered colors, but also a 2nd Action Pilot being the Action Astronaut, meaning that there were actually 5 figures in that box set. The only way you could get that. Also on the back of the box is the, I guess, file card. These were actually baseball-sized cards by the time 1994 rolled around. And on the inside flap, we have a little thing about the Action Soldier. And this was a different blurb for every all the 4 different action figures. One very interesting thing, I noticed that it actually mentions the Green Beret machine gun outpost as one of the more popular sets that you can get here. I mean, you have a limited amount of space in order to write this type of stuff on here, but they chose a Sears exclusive as one of the more popular sets, which, I mean, sure, yeah, it's popular for collectors nowadays, but back in the day, I don't think a lot of kids would have actually been able to find that. While the instructions tell you how to put the bunker together, it actually doesn't mention that you can actually arrange the walls in different ways if you want to. While this is the standard arrangement for the bunker, with the side walls sloping downwards, you can actually reverse them and it looks just as good and is just as stable as if it were the other way around. And you might want to do that, in fact, because as you can see, these simulated timber beams actually stick out here and here. So if you pop one on this side, it actually locks together, meaning that if you had more than one action soldier and thus more than one bunker, you can actually fit them all together to make a much larger wall or a much larger bunker. Individually numbered for collectability, what does that mean? It means your action soldier has an individual number printed on his left foot. And yes, I got a bit carried away with the nippers on my base. This was a hokey idea when Playmate's Star Trek figures did this, and it was a hokey idea when they started to do it with a 1994 12-inch and these 3 3/4-inch figures. I'm glad that they stopped doing this. And here is the action soldier besides a few other examples, such as this one being the 1994 mail-away G.I. Joe, or better known as General Joseph Colton, who would have been a lieutenant in his 1960s Green Beret outfit. And as you can see, his lower legs are the exact same mold as the action soldiers here. And I also have an example of the generic infantryman, this one being the real American hero Grunt. If you're looking for a 3 3/4-inch action soldier, or any of the other individual figures from this series, they're plentiful on the aftermarket and relatively cheap. When they were released back in 1994, they weren't popular, partly because of the high original price. Much of that cost going to the trendy individual numbering system and the cool packaging, rather than into the figures themselves. That being said, they are all really solid action figures, especially if you want something closer to the iconic Army Man toy. There are a few variations for the action soldier, first being in the aforementioned box set, where the figure itself was the same as the individual version, but all of the brown accessories were made of black plastic. Oddly, the action sailor and pilot were given variant outfit color schemes, but not the soldier or marine. A few years later, a company called Fun for All made keychain versions of all 4 services. Only the action pilot came with any accessories, and that was only his helmet and oxygen mask. All 4 figures differed from the Hasbro originals with the addition of a molded loop on their backs, as well as a new 1998 copyright stamp. This company later produced a box set with all 4 figures having variant outfits. The action pilot and action sailor now having the Hasbro box set color schemes. However, unlike the Hasbro original box set, the soldier and marine were given variant outfits too. While the marine got a desert uniform, the original 1960s action marine never had this. The soldier got a cool dark green military police uniform, which the 1960s action soldier really did have. Well, that's all for this review. Thank you for watching, and happy 60th birthday, G.I. Joe!